everyone. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. And I'm calling for any community comments relevant to closed session items.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. And therefore, we will adjourn to closed session at this time. we're returning from closed session with nothing to report. And we apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties with the feed. And if you will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, that then takes us to the adoption of the agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Hernandez. And we'll take a roll call vote. Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Colon?
Aye.
Member Nelson?
Aye.
And Member Funk?
Aye.
Christina Berger votes aye. It's unanimous. That takes us then to community comments. Ms. Staff?
I'm going to read out the...
We have several that I'll be reading, so thank you, President Behringer. I will begin.
Thank you.
The first comment is from Judy Skillman regarding school reopening. My concern is for the physical and mental health of our students, their families, and our entire Snowline family. The number of cases is on the rise, and no amount of wishful thinking or negative testing will change the fact that people are transmitting the virus, becoming ill from the virus, experiencing long-term damage from the virus, and yes, even dying from the virus. We are still in a pandemic. Thankfully, we have a lot of incredibly resourceful, resilient individuals within our Snowline family. Student learning has adjusted to unprecedented changes in educational systems of delivery. The demands placed on families' flexibility has been a bumpy road, but with creative responses, life is beginning to smooth out and students are becoming more tech savvy than ever before. Why, oh why would we, a district that preaches the importance of safe, predictable, consistent, nurturing environment, jump ship, change horses in midstream, and pull the rug out from under what is finally becoming safe, predictable, consistent, and nurturing for our students and families? At this time, the science does not support the risk we'd be taking by sending students back into the classroom, especially before the 2-week winter break. The whiplash we'd be causing by inviting students back and then sending them home for a 2-week break, or worse, for a reclosure due to an outbreak, would be cruel and detrimental. I ask that you please fully consider science, as well as our students' and staff's safety, before making any decisions with or without the waiver. Thank you. Judy Skillman, Counselor, Phelan Elementary. The next comment is anonymous regarding the return to school. With the current rise in COVID numbers and new government shutdowns, will the district move forward with reopening schools? Will the district push for specific schools to reopen if others cannot? Or will there be an all or none focus? The next comment is from Tom Charland, and his comment is returning to in-person hybrid learning. I have taught 5th grade at Phelan Elementary for 25 years. I love this community and have loved seeing thousands of young people grow and start families of their own here. I would love to have my students in the classroom. I would not love knowing that someone in my school or my classroom brought home COVID-19 to anyone in the tri-community. I would not love the possibility that I may have unknowingly spread the virus. We are all responsible for the health and welfare of this whole community. My students have learned so much this year academically and personally. We have learned to be resilient and grateful for each day of our lives. Parents at our school have become efficient as co-teachers. As our staff have spoken with parents during parent conferences, and we are finding that they do not want to be responsible for infecting another child or adult on campus if their child unknowingly brought the virus to school. I know that Snowline administrators and board members are part of this community and will ultimately be held responsible for keeping our whole family safe. This person's name is Parker. In-person sports is their comment. Can you tell me why, if our numbers are going up and we are in the purple tier and schools aren't opened, why is in-person practice for cheer and football still happening? That doesn't seem safe. The next comment is anonymous also, regarding school reopening for hybrid learning. I have great concerns in regards to the proposed reopening the elementary schools for hybrid learning in the midst of the greatest uptick of COVID-19 cases, and at a time when the governor is pulling the emergency brake to help slow the spread. It seems risky and disruptive for all involved, putting staff and students needlessly at risk when a current educational program is already in place. Please reconsider the waiver and the outlying effects that reopening could have on our community. The next comment is from Casey Moen regarding hybrid learning. I am writing to you to address our district's planned reopening to hybrid learning. As a parent, I do not appreciate being put in a situation where I have to choose between my children's health and keeping their teachers. They have built strong relationships with their teachers and are excelling due to the terrific leadership of their instructors. At home, we have built a predictable and consistent environment that has helped lead to their success. Breaking up this routine that has been established through the first trimester to offer a hybrid platform that will be less successful is unacceptable. Teachers and students will not be safe in the classroom. The science I have read about indicates the virus spreads rapidly indoors through the air. Particles can hang in the air for hours at a time, and the ventilation systems are not enough to exchange infected air for clean air. Teachers will need to keep their windows and doors open in order to aid in the exchange of air. As winter approaches, this will not be possible with the cold and wind that is sure to come. I propose that we not open our schools for the foreseeable future. The virus in our area is spreading. In the last 2 weeks alone, I have had multiple students and family members contract the virus. Families need to protect themselves first before we can feel safe to open up. I will not be sending my children back to school and would encourage other parents to do the same. As a district, instead of creating anxiety by continuing to push to reopen, we should be investing our resources to help families continue to adapt to at-home learning. Thank you for your time. He then provides a couple of links that I will forward to the board no later than tomorrow. This comment is from Jennifer Lewis, and this is regarding the school waiver. I feel like going to a hybrid model is going to be a lot of change for students and teachers who are finally getting used to online learning. I don't know if it is worth it for students to only be in class twice a week for like 3 hours a day. They may need to change teachers, change classmates, and lose the routines that have been established. We all know constant change is not good for children. I'm very proud of my students and see some great learning happening under these unprecedented times. With the current COVID spike, we may implement all of this change only to be shut down shortly after we start back hybrid. Students will then have everything changed on them once again. I don't think it is fair to put students through the back and forth, open and close, that will most likely occur with getting a waiver at this time. We all want students back in classrooms. I, for one, want it done safely and smartly. The next comment is from Patty Abdallah. Her comment is regarding going back to school with the waiver. I teach first grade, and just within the last few days, my colleagues have told me that they have now had students and families becoming infected with COVID at our site. Families are sending their children to other family members who have not been exposed or are now dealing with an entire household of the virus. Our numbers in the district are continuing to rise. The attempt to make families and staff feel that our safe place will be our schools and classrooms is not transparent enough, and even under the CDC guidelines cannot prevent COVID from coming into them if a child is asymptomatic. The statistics of schools that have opened only to be closed shortly afterwards were schools that had also followed the sanitizing protocol that was prescribed for their districts, and yet COVID came into those schools. Our air filtering is not 100%. It may be, in fact, quite possibly less, possibly 5% of a fresh air return, from what I understand from those who have worked on our units. My question to the board and to the administration is, why would you push families into a situation where they must decide on sending their children back during the increase of COVID in our district? There are some families who now must make a decision to send their children back because their remote teacher will have to teach a hybrid class, and they don't want to lose the relationship and the learning that that teacher has provided for their child. You are putting these families in a position that they have to choose between safety and perhaps quality teaching. You have suggested that classrooms and teachers will change. Isn't this one more stress for families and teachers to have to walk through in an already stressful situation? Please reconsider your push to send elementary students and staff back to school. You cannot possibly say for 100% that you are sending them into a safe and healthy working and learning environment. And those are all the community comments.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the community for your comments. And please stay tuned for an update regarding those matters. And that then takes us to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda, removing H6 to be discussed after.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any other items to be pulled? No? Okay. Any discussion? Alrighty, we'll go with a roll call vote. Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Colon?
Aye.
Member Nelson?
Aye.
Member Funk?
Aye.
And Christina Barringer votes aye. The motion passes. Taking us to approve the minutes of the regular meeting by teleconference, October 27th, 2020 of Snowline Unified School District Board of Trustees. The personnel motions, designation of the 2020 annual organizational meeting of the governing board. The resolution number 21-1477, authorizing remuneration for a board member. Board resolutions for the 2021 school year. The Williams annual report for 2019-20 school year, and the Williams first quarterly report for 2021.
Madam President, it did not include item H6.
You're right. I apologize. We are.
Excuse me, Madam President. I'm sorry. Just so you understand, H6 is just an information item, so it will not need approval.
Okay. Okay, but Member Hernandez, we can have discussion.
Yeah.
On
yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So that one is actually stricken, but then it doesn't require approval. So we have approved item H8, the MOU between San Bernardino County Workforce Development Board for the San Bernardino County America's Jobs Center of California system and the Snowline Unified School District. H9, student expulsions and or stipulated expulsions and or stipulated suspended expulsions. Closure of Fund 35 project sub-funds for Snowline Unified School District and the district financial transactions. So those items have passed. And Member Hernandez, you wanted discussion on item H6?
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Holman, my apologies for not getting this question out to you since we received the agenda. I've been rather tied up on items, and so it's simply in a question of page 6 of that report, in which we show that both Phelan Elementary School and Vista Verde Elementary School had deficiencies, quantity 2 and quantity 4 respectively, to which there are 2 and 3 outstanding. I was wondering what those deficiencies were and what is our progress on those.
Yeah, thanks, Member Hernandez. I appreciate you bringing those to our attention. We certainly are prepared for that. No worries about not asking you in advance, because we do have those answers here. You said it well. 2 at Phelan Elementary School and 3 at Vista Verde Elementary School. At the time of the submission of the report, that information report, they were not able to take into account the good work that Rick Dawson, the director of our maintenance and operations, and his wonderful team, who actually fixed the 5 deficiencies. 2 restrooms at Phelan Elementary School, apparatus that needed to be repaired, and just the functionality of a particular toilet. Both of them were fixed and did not get updated on that documentation, as well as at Vista Verde Elementary School, looking for those details that you asked, a flooring surface that just needed to remedy a trip hazard, as well as a sink or fountain that just needed to be repaired and was repaired. And then finally, playground equipment that had to be put back into order, and it all was. So it's all functional. It was a bit misleading, and I had the same questions, and so we were fully prepared, because normally, and I got to tell you, our friends over at San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, the Williams officers, they're outstanding. We really appreciate working with them, and so too, again, our maintenance and operations, it's all remedied.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification, and glad that those are all remedied as of now.
Thank you for that, Member Hernandez. And that takes us to item I1. Dr. Holman?
Yes, thank you so very much. So at the end of the agenda is what we've done every setting here that is a board meeting, and that is give all of you as the board members, and certainly our listening audience, an update relative to our at-home learning and all in-person efforts, and really the status of that. So we'll engage in that. I will share with you Alan Miller. He'll be joining us too. We had another commitment, a professional commitment for our district. He's representing us there, and I appreciate that. And I bring up Alan because he normally presents it, but I don't know, is it Alan or is it going to be Dennis? I'm sorry, I can't quite see on our screen who's at the ready there, because it's right at the time between where Alan was going to do it or Dennis.
Dennis is trying to ready it right now.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. So thanks so very much. So now to move forward, President Behrens, I just want to bring up the point that was very well said by you, and that was the public comments. I think most, if not all, of the public comments should be addressed in this. I say addressed, but we'll be talking about, I think, all that was mentioned in those public comments. If for some reason you and your team feel like they're not, I'll certainly follow up with those, with our stakeholders who we so much appreciate being involved in this setting here. So I will share right off the bat. I think there are 28 slides here, but it's really the same process, right? I keep just about all of the same slides that are relevant in here. So we'll be able to move through it relatively quickly and spend the time where we need to and then new information. But I do, just if you're wondering, why do I keep those same slides that you've seen time and again? Because as a reminder, this presentation, for folks who can't join us tonight, James Fields, our Director of Risk Management, Marketing, and Public Relations, posts this on our website. So I want to make that really clear too. So folks who aren't able to be here, please know it can be accessed on the website after the meeting here for information for folks who are interested in that. So with all that, thank you, Dennis, for putting that up there and presenting that on the screen. Thank you for going on the presentation. I appreciate that, Dennis. So with that, we can go right to the second one, Dennis. We'll talk about the outcomes, and the third one after that will be the agenda. So on slide number 2 is our outcomes, and those really haven't changed. Just give all of you board members this shared understanding around where we are in at-home learning and where we are in in-person learning. And then the second The second outcome is really then getting commitments from you right at the end. I've got a slide that'll be real up front. We've got 5 recommendations that we'd love direction from all of you. And so with that, Dennis, I don't know if that slide, is it able to be moved forward there? Thanks, Dennis. And then we can go to the agenda too. Thanks. That would be the next one, Dennis, on slide 3. And Dennis, certainly hold me accountable if I'm not talking into the microphone. Okay, my apologies if I'm not. I'll certainly endeavor to do that. So here's what we're going to cover. Remind everyone about where we're focused in terms of what's informing our efforts in the first one in public health guidance. We'll certainly share again what we're doing in the current design. We heard of that in the public comments. A lot of data, as always, because that informs our efforts, not just the science, but the data too. And then the in-person learning efforts, where we are in terms of what is operating, what is being worked on, and then finally, as I just mentioned, getting direction from all of you specific to those next steps. And so with that, with those next steps, that'd be the next slide then. And here's a reminder, here we have really endeavored to be informed and follow the guidance of federal, state, and local health officials. In fact, at the local level, we know a good number of all those officers by name because we're talking to them on a regular basis. I appreciate the support of Director Corwin Porter, Dr. Gustafson, the lead medical official, and Heather Cockrell, who's met with a good number of us, not even here in this meeting, if you will, at the senior cabinet level, but she's even willing to engage with others. It's so very helpful so that we can get right from the public health officials the direction. So we're really endeavoring to follow the experts, follow the science. And so on to slide 4, Dennis. This is something that a mantra that I think we've really tried to commit to, and certainly myself in this role, right? Public health science and these two pieces, right? We want to be the smartest, not necessarily the fastest. We're going to talk about the elementary school waiver tonight. I mean, very clearly, we're one of the last ones to make that waiver be submitted. And I think that's evidence of that we're going to engage in the process of being smart first, not always fast. And then also be humble. And this is really a message to me, right? Be humble and change when we need to. And we'll talk about some recommended changes as we get to the end here. So with that, on slide 6, and we'll move through these pretty quickly, I think, Dennis, because you've seen these. We've got 2 designs, at home and in person, right? And with at home, I'm really proud to say we've got 2 options, remote school and homeschool. And Dennis, as you go to slide 7, and we'll just spend a moment on slide 7, very proud that we've got a homeschool option. Not all school districts do. We've got a very successful homeschool in Snowline Academy that provides the flexibility and all the other characteristics listed there. And then on slide 8, as you know, remote school has been in effect since day one, right? That's that neighborhood design, if you will, your home school in effect. When I say home, that's not the homeschool Snowline Academy, but what I'm used to as that school I've been going to as a child, as a student, I should say, and being connected with teachers in that regard. So those are still operational, of course. But then as we go on to the next slide, Dennis, I want to remind all of you, there are 3 metrics, right, that the county is responsible for, San Bernardino County, and all counties in California, when we talk about how COVID-19 is being measured, and then in turn schools, since we're in the education industry, and how schools and school districts can and cannot function based on these 3 metrics for all of San Bernardino County. Daily case rate, right, per 100,000, the positivity rate of COVID testing, and then also the more recent addition is the Healthy Places Index. Those 3 measures all need to be within a given tier, whether it be red or then orange, which is less restrictive, or yellow for counties and all the school districts within those counties to move from a more restrictive environment, purple, which we're in right now, and we'll talk more about that, to less restrictive environments, and that's red, orange, and then finally yellow. So with that reminder, Dennis, and on to the next one, there are the tiers, right, and the numbers associated with them. Right now, the important ones are the purple tier numbers from left to right. Those numbers are 7 daily cases or more per 100,000 is a purple tier qualifier. And then the bottom of the threshold in that next column is specifically the positivity rate, and that's at 8%, as is the Healthy Places Index. That's the number that they use for that third one, even though that's blank. That's the threshold at this stage for purple. And that's the low end. To get out of that purple tier, a number would have to be below 8% on the two right-hand columns, and then below 7 on the daily case rate. All of them, and this is an important piece, right? Not just one number, but all three measures have to be below a threshold for a particular length of time. And that particular length of time is typically, it is 2 weeks. You know that Governor Newsom was talking earlier this week, and I'll be talking on Friday too, but he was talking on Monday. And now I think it's notable that a change made in this matrix is that over one fell swoop in 1 week, because of the uptick and the increasing numbers in COVID-19, there were 11 counties in purple. San Diego County was one, and that escalated all the way up into the 40s, right? More than 40 districts now, counties now in the purple tier, based upon the change that Governor Newsom made, and that was the 1 week metric of and not the 2 week metric in terms of falling backwards. Didn't impact us. I just share that with all of you because that was in the news on Monday, and again, at least we were promised from Governor Newsom that he'll be talking Friday again about the state situation, which we'll have our eyes and ears on for sure. Dennis, as you go to the next slide, and thanks again for helping me out with this. Zooming in is really not necessary, I think, is really why I put this in here. I did it last time too. It's the top three measures are the top three metrics. Those are the California Department of Public Health metrics that are used again, that are communicated on a weekly basis, typically on Tuesdays. This week it was communicated on Monday. I think that was the line with Governor Newsom's talk. But I think when you scan over those trend lines, you can see that those graphs. You can see the actual date for each day. That's not the important piece of why I put this in here. I just wanted to show you the trend, if you will, as I mentioned, the trending of those three graphs. On the left-hand side is the daily case rate. You can see that has been on a steady incline. If you're wondering what that date is on the far left, that's September 5th on the far left-hand side. That's the last date that's on that left-hand graph. I've been on it a number of times, and I remember that to be the case. What you can see is finally, it's for a long time that's been inclined in the purple. There's just a slight decrease just from yesterday to today. That's the first decrease since, really, in effect, September's time. So if nothing else, it's good to see a decrease, but you can see that constant incline, which isn't good news, specific to the daily case rate measure. The middle one is the positivity rate. You can see that has gone up, down, and is climbing again. And that rate is significantly above. It's about 2% above. It's right at about 10% right now in the purple. And then the Healthy Places Index too has been up, down, up, down. That dates back to March, but it wasn't a metric. It is now. You can see it's still in the purple and quite a bit above the red. Again, that's really the message I wanted to carry here, is you can see where those trend lines are, how they've been going, where they exist right now. Always you can access this information, and I put it in my letters, my regular letters that I send a couple times a week. I used to send them daily. We send them when they're needed. I always provide this link in those letters if you're looking for that too. So thank you, Dennis, for that. But let's drill down on some specific numbers, right? It's like, well, Ryan, tell me about what it looks like specifically. So here are the county data. Purple is up there for a reason, right? Because those numbers that are in purple represent they're beyond the purple threshold. And you might ask, Ryan, why'd you choose those dates? What I tried to do was choose dates that might be able to share with all of you the trends, and you can see how it's been developing over time. All the way back on the left-hand side, that COVID-19 daily case rate. Again, that's a per 100,000 measures so that all communities can be compared against each other, if you will, or compared to each other in a statistical model when these decisions are made by the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. August 31st, we were at 11.61 as a county. And you see that trend line from August 31st all the way to November 7th, the most recent data. And those most recent data, you can see went from 11, went down to about 9, but it's climbed back up as a county, registering right now at 24 daily cases. Again, what's that threshold? 7. 7 or less gets out of purple metric. In the middle column, positivity rate, you can see all the way back in August, 7.29%, right? That's just below 8%. So that's why that's in that red tier. Stayed in the red tier for quite a while, all the way up until about Halloween. And then you can see more recently in the 9s. And like I said, 10%, to be exact, 9.97% most recently, to keep us in that purple area purple tier, for the positivity rate. And then the healthy places index, you can see is spanned from 9.5% on the last day of August all the way to this 10 days ago, in November 7th, almost 12% on the healthy places index. Hard to say anything other than those data are not trending the right way, not the way that anyone wants to see data go when we talk about the virus here. When we go to the next page, Dennis, people might ask, well, what about Snowline data? We have the good fortune of receiving data on a weekly basis. Thank you to San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, who's in charge of that. It's Barb Alejandre. I certainly appreciate her support all the time. She's the Chief Governmental Interrelations and the liaison between our county and us as school districts with San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. When we don't call them ourselves, I want to give them a lot of credit. They're willing to allow us to call them and talk to them individually too. But what you can see in these regular reports that Barb Alejandre sends us from the Department of Public Health that's in San Bernardino County, you can see from September 19th, we're in red and we bounced around, red, orange, yellow even, right? The lowest case rate. And that's Snowline's boundaries. I want to be really clear about that. That's not just the Victorville area of Vista Verde. It's not just Phelan. It's not just Pinion Hills, Westbound Valley, Wrightwood, Oak Hills. It's all of our boundaries, and the daily case rates from September 19th in red from 4.2 went all the way to October 24th, and you can see a daily case rate in Snowline at 15. Then the next week-long period ending on the 31st, that's a 7-day average right there of 10, and then most recently a 7-day average of 22, keeping us in that purple area. And then the other two columns, you can just take note of the total cases each 7-day period. That's not a daily period, that's a weekly basis. And then also the weekly total case count for youths. Youths are defined as ages 5 to 19, so that it's really looking at, even though they call it youth cases, it's really that school-aged range for students. You can see the data there, extending from 0 back in September to we've got a high of late of 16, and those are the data that are most recent. People might say, again, I want to reiterate this, Ryan, why don't you have November 14th? I don't have that up there because we don't have those data, nor do San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools have those data, nor do the county. They don't have those data. Those are reported from the state to the county, so that's why we don't have those data. So it runs in arrears of about 9 days or so. So thank you, Dennis, for helping me with that. We'll go to 15. And we have more data we want to share with you, and those are the surveys. I know those have been made available to you most recently, and the responses. I want to thank our stakeholders, our community. They always step up and support us in many fronts. One great learning from the pandemic is how willing our stakeholders are to respond to our short and hopefully pertinent surveys, because again, we had an outstanding response on the elementary school waiver survey. It was relatively simple question. We provided it, as you can see, in the multiple languages. Those would be Korean, Spanish, and English. And it went directly to, or was asked of elementary school parents and guardians to respond. There were a total of 4 questions. You might say, Ryan, why am I only highlighting 2? The other 2 questions were name, and then, of course, the school at which they were attending. But really, the 2 that I want to highlight tonight were the 2 main questions. And those were simply on my slide, at least, yes or no, do you want to return to school? And yes or no, do you need transportation? And that would be, when I say return to school, the elementary school waiver, just as a reminder, that's a hybrid design, right? We talked at our last meeting, and I know I've kind of, probably beaten this up, and my apologies, but that hybrid design, again, is defined as some time at school and some time at home. The one that we've been working with our stakeholders seems to be the most popular and most widely accepted is the 2 days for a group, we'll call it the A group, 2 days for the B group, and with a day off for an extended cleaning. Extended cleaning, of course, would occur going into the weekend, but also on a day. And what we talked about at the last meeting, you might recall, is that the model we've been working with that seems to be most accepted is the Wednesday for that extended cleaning. And so with that, if you just turn, thank you, Dennis. This I'll go through real quickly. This was not a question. You just see the participation rate. Proud to say that almost 70% of our families responded. Those of us who know surveys, that's typically not the norm, right? That surveys will get 30 and 40% if we're fortunate, not just we as an organization, but if individuals are fortunate. Thank you again to our community for responding so well. You can see the green there. And you can see just the school percentage rate from left to right. Baldy Mesa, Phelan, Pinnon Hills, Snowline Academy included here because, of course, they've got kids TK through 12. The Heritage School has elementary school kids, of course, and middle school kids. And then Vista Verde Elementary School in Wrightwood. That's the left to right. You can see the percentages, a high of Wrightwood at 92%, Heritage right behind 87%. And again, Snowline Academy, that's a unique situation. We wanted to make sure they were included in there. If you're wondering why that's so, well, that is a unique situation. And we found that some of the families just didn't think that they, necessarily maybe needed to respond because they were going to stay there, right? And so that was a little bit unique one. But again, with all this, we'll talk about the follow-up that will be done. But Dennis, as we go to 18, here specifically gets at the yes or no. I mean, simply put, do you want to come back to the in-person hybrid model based upon elementary school waiver approval? The yes being in that orange color, I think that is to me. My apologies if my eyes are off there, but in that orange larger portion of the pie, 63% and then a 37% saying no thanks, I'd like to stay on the at-home learning. And so with that breakdown, the 63 yes, 37 no. This next slide, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Again, same left to right. Baldy Mesa, Phelan is the next one. Pinyon Hills is the next school. Snowline Academy, Heritage, Vista Verde, and Wrightwood. So same schools in all these slides. And you can see the yes/no rates. Wrightwood on that right-hand side, 78% and some change there saying yes, with about 22% saying no. And you can see as I just go, the other direction, Vista Verde is a 55-45 yes, no. The Heritage School is 67 or 8, 32 yes, no. Snowline Academy, 39-40% and 60% no, want to stay at home. Pinyon Hills, 68 and a 32, that's on a yes, no. And then the last two, Phelan, 56 and 44, the yes, no. And then finally, Baldy Mesa, 63 and 37. So interesting enough, the last one I ended with, Baldy Mesa Elementary School, just about identical to the overall average. I mean, 63, you might remember me saying that, in 37. So that's a response on the yes/no piece. And then Dennis, you've already done this. Thanks so very much. Just if you're interested, you'll have this afterward as I always share it with you. It's a distribution by grade. I think what stands out when I think of trend lines and the statistics, at least I've gone through, those are all pretty comparable. They're all, at each grade level is all pretty consistent there. Not major differences, not major swings there. And then Dennis, as the next slide we go to with transportation, that was a yes/no as well. Yes, I need it, or no, I don't. An 88-12 in effect right there. And then Dennis, as you go to the next slide, this is again interesting. We asked it of everyone. Keep in mind that when we're open for in-person learning under normal conditions, right, not COVID-19 environment, we offer transportation at Baldy Mesa Elementary School, Phelan Elementary School, and Pinyon Hills Elementary School. The other four don't have it, right? They haven't had that. And so it was a unique question to that group to a certain degree. You can see those numbers are lower But you can see the other schools span from about 14% to about 18% saying yes, we need transportation. The overall number you might be saying, Ryan, I thought it was less. I thought it was around 12%. Well, that's because the other schools who don't typically have transportation, those numbers lower, brought the average down. But you can see not a lot of students in the big picture, but there's certainly students expressing through their families that need. With the parent data, there's one more block of survey data. Dennis, I'm going to ask you to double time here. I know that's not easy, but do you mind taking on the staff survey? Because while I kind of oversaw the first one, Dennis did well to oversee the survey results here of the staff survey. Thanks, Dennis.
All right, I have to open up my mic and then go back to presenting. So I got my mic open. Let me put the presentation back up there. So staff survey data in that same period of time when we were doing parent survey data of the elementary students, we had 393 staff members respond to the survey, and that upper left part of the data there shows that accounted for a little over half of the certificated staff, a little over 30% of the classified staff, and a little over 34% of our overall management staff. And then percentage of responses was about 49% of the respondents came from certificated, 45% of the respondents from classified, 6% from administration or management. Below that was the question about returning to school in a hybrid situation. And there was only 3 choices given on the survey. And that was yes, return to a hybrid. Yes, if child supervision was provided for my Snowline students while they're not in school. And then no, due to my own medical situation. And you can see it there by the different groups. Certificated had 9% say no due to medical. 4% of the classified staff said no due to medical, and none of the management staff answered no due to medical. And then you could add the yeses together if you chose to, or consider them separately. And then another question on the staff survey was, this one's specific just to teachers, would be, would you prefer to continue teaching remote, even if it's not for your own medical? And so giving them the option for that. And the 18% of the certificated responses, total of 36 teachers, said yes, they would. And that was in addition to above the 18 teachers that had said no due to their own medical. And then we asked the question about resign, retire when directed to return back in person. And a few staff members did answer yes to that. And then the table there to the far right is the information that we had asked staff, would having supervision for their Snowline students who aren't in school help allow them to come back to work in person as students come back. And the information for that is over to the right.
Dennis, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. That's, again, not easy work. He does that well. Appreciate that. And then as Dennis goes to the next slide, we're coming down to the end here. Appreciate all your patience here. Hopefully this information, of course, is helpful. And that is now on to just where we are with the in-person models that we have, cohorts with acute needs. That information at the top you've seen before, right? The importance of being stable, only 16 kids at one time. That acute need issue is really key, right? Who are the kids who have the greatest needs? And we started with our moderate severe programs. We've got them up and going. Appreciate the efforts being done there across the system to support those kids with the greatest needs. Now, more special education classes are being worked on as we speak, as well as at the levels of elementary school, middle school, and high school. I really appreciate the collaborative work. We've asked them to work collectively at levels to provide for a consistent outcome of those acute needs kids at each of those levels. More are coming. They're in process right now. It's hard work, to say the least, to get those going, but I appreciate that effort right now to make those next levels of mild to moderate kids coming back in special education and other kids with those acute needs across our system. So I appreciate the great work being done there. And that's, again, that'll be an ongoing process, as you mentioned at the last meeting. It's needed for sure, and that's why it's out there, because again, you wonder if people out there are wondering, again, cohorts say that in purple tier, they can operate because of those really strict guidelines that are in place about not commingling, about that cohort staying pure, staying together, and not connecting with any others. Physically distancing is certainly, to say the least, they cannot connect with any others except those in the cohort. So that's where we are with cohorts right now, and the school-based sports there. You know about that same process, the strict adherence that it says there to those two things, right? Cohorting again, as well as separation, to ensure that the spread of the disease does not occur, or the virus, I should say. And that's all about outdoor conditioning only in the purple tier. It doesn't matter the sport, only in the purple tier. What was to occur on Monday in the governor's conversation, his regular briefing, was to have a youth sports update. That did not occur because of the other messaging that the governor did about talking of the state's challenge with COVID-19, its response, and the forthcoming news on Friday. So look for more sports or youth sports update in the future. I would also say that CIF, that's the California Interscholastic Federation that governs sports at the high school level, up and down the state, the southern sections, particularly ours. The current guidelines remain in effect, and that means since we're in the purple tier, that conditioning can still occur, of course, through the California Department of Public Health. The CIF reiterated that, but they also reiterated that no competitions will occur until an update is received with that new information. So just know that that's where we are with school-based sports. Thank you, Dennis. I'm into the next page on the elementary school waiver. A lot of work, done just to get the application. I thank everyone who did that. A huge thanks to Robert Chacon, who headed that up for us. But boy, it was much more than Robert across our large-scale system here to get those waivers done. Thank you to all. I can share with all of you, we were expecting that information last week. And those are, we got a preview that we might get it last week, and we didn't. I just have to say beforehand and finish that thought. I think it's important that everyone understands that waivers are considered individually. We hear the talk all the time. Are we going to submit a waiver? Or Ryan, you submitted the waiver. How is the waiver due? And even I have it singular, when in fact it's ultimately plural, right? You see that in the first bullet. That waivers for each school site are submitted on behalf of the entire district to the San Bernardino County Public Health, who reviews it, goes up to California Department of Public Health, and then returns. And they're considered individually based on the COVID-19 case rate data, right? The daily case rate data that we just went through not too long ago in the given community. I think it's really important I talk about that now and give some examples. For instance, Vista Verde Elementary School is in the city limits of Victorville. So the daily case rate of Victorville's city limits is what impacts the decision at the San Bernardino County level, as well as at the state level, California Department of Health, as to whether or not they can open. Now you might say, well, Ryan, what's the threshold? We talk about 7 being the bottom threshold of purple. For an elementary school waiver to be approved, a community must be below 14. So 14 is the upper threshold for a waiver to be approved. And again, ours are in that approval cycle. We'll finish that thought in just a moment there. Again, Victorville is what governs the decision, if you will, or at least the consideration for the decision for Vista Verde Elementary School, for Baldwin Mesa, for the Heritage School, for Phelan Elementary School. Those schools are in the Phelan boundaries. I mean, some people might say, what about Oak Hills? And again, I'm just telling you what is the decision at the public health officials level. That's what the state is looking at and San Bernardino County is looking at. So those 3 schools by Phelan is the community case rate data that are looked at. And then moving westward, Pinion Hills would of course be in Pinion Hills Elementary School, I should say, would be Pinion Hills community data. And then lastly, Wrightwood Elementary School's data would be looked upon through the lens of Wrightwood, that town, that entire town, and the daily case rate data. So with that, the preparations I see there, I mean, just immense work being done. As we speak, I want to apologize for maybe even people looking on it, have my head down on occasion. This is the great situation where we've got connections, if you will, because more relationships is a better word, professional relationships. And I was just alerted and have official news. The email was sent very late to us that we have the ruling on our 6 waivers, right? There are 6 elementary schools. And only one elementary school, Indian Hills Elementary School, had their elementary school waiver approved. And that's not for any deficiencies. I want to be really clear in the application. The application by the letter that I've now received from Dr. Gustafson. She's the medical officer for San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. There are no deficiencies in the content. It's solely on the case rate data. And so for Pinyon Hills Elementary School, their waiver's been approved because it's below that 14 cases per 100,000 residents. It's at 3.55 at the last, at the time of approval. The other 5 schools, unfortunately, did not receive approval. Those 5 schools, again, for Baldy, just for all reminders, Baldy Mesa Elementary School, the Heritage School, Phelan Elementary School, Vista Verde Elementary School, and Wrightwood Elementary School. Those 5 were not approved. They were not approved because of our range of the 3 communities, right? For Baldy Mesa Elementary School, the Heritage School, and Phelan Elementary School, the boundary is Phelan. The rate was 26.14 daily cases per 100,000. So that does not allow for the waiver to be approved. For Wrightwood Elementary School, the town of Wrightwood has a daily case rate most recently of 35.87 cases per 100,000. And then for Victorville, the Victorville city rate is 39.96, which is connected to Vista Verde Elementary School. So I'm reading right from this letter, the letter from Dr. Aaron Gustafson, the medical officer. Now, please know this. You might ask, so what happens next? So that means we have 1 school approved. Those other 5 we don't resubmit because of this initial denial. What occurs, and it's right here in this letter, what transpires is once the daily case rate goes below 14, again, that's the number, right? That threshold that I mentioned earlier. Once the daily case rate in the 3 communities that are impacting these 5 schools, Victorville, Phelan, and Wrightwood, once it goes below 14, the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health officials resubmit to California Department of Public Health and then report that the daily case rate is under 14, and then approval comes in the next 2 days in that regard. We don't have to do anything. It's not our effort. That's what happens automatically. Just because, I'll be very clear, just because a waiver is approved doesn't mean we start tomorrow. That decision is really governed by ultimately board members and ourselves here to do the work as administrators to facilitate that process. But again, just to be really clear, anyone listening in, this information just came in. And again, thank you to Barb Alejandre, who alerted me via text. The email is in. And those are the numbers. 5 schools, elementary schools not approved, Pinyon Hills Elementary School being the one that is approved at this time. So that's the elementary school waiver. But before we get into the details of that, this next slide is my last slide. And Dennis, if you can go to that one, because it really relates to the elementary school waiver and everything else we want to talk about. But certainly the elementary school waiver, I would guess, has to be on everyone's minds. So first and foremost, I feel like it's really important, having talked with our stakeholders, that we move the elementary school waiver start date from a starting date of December 14th right now. We target right now January 7th. Now, January 7th is, of course, after the holidays. We've worked extensively with stakeholders. We've heard from them. And those stakeholders, of course, being, at all levels, our staff members, our leaders, and of course, some parents too. And while there's not 100% agreement across the system, let's say the parents, I know some want to get going right away. We still feel this is the best design, and our recommendation to you that we target January 7th, all the while knowing that day after day, it's been my job, and Robert Chacon and Dennis Zimmerman and Alan Miller, we all engage in this, looking at the data on a regular basis. day after day. And as we get closer to January 7th, we need to have that starting target date, but we'll make that decision in conjunction with all of you and our stakeholders as we get closer. But right now we say targeting January 7th. That's a Thursday. We see that as a powerful day, given that we get back from the holidays and then get some time to get set and then start on a Thursday and then wrap around with our cohorts, the B cohort on Thursday, Friday, and then the A cohort Monday, Tuesday, and then a Wednesday day for our PLCs, our collaborative groups, to get together to see how things are going, talk about what worked, what didn't, really make those changes and shifts. That's an idea that we've seen at Lucerne Valley and some others. It seems to be very viable. And that second bullet as a recommended next step is we'd ask of all of you that, starting the approved elementary school Waiver sites per guidelines. So here are the guidelines, right? That any denials I just talked about already, I put that in before, I think like an hour or two before we just, got this information before the board meeting here. So we've got 5 that have not been approved. What we would say is again, there's time, there's quite a bit of time before we get to January 7th. We'll monitor week by week to see if it does get resubmitted. And we'll monitor the one that has been approved, of course, and that's Pinyon Hills Elementary School, assuming that January 7th meets the consensus across the board here. We'll monitor that, but we would suggest here that, and I would, that if their data are in the approved range, we continue to follow the science and the guidelines that say, yes, we can open, we're able to open, and given that we're going to be safe to the absolute level that we need to be, we would recommend that we would start on January 7th if all the conditions say as such. Also, that third bullet talks about a middle school, high school message. To be quite frank, you saw the data in San Bernardino County, and while we still have some time before we get to the end of the first semester, I think it's very clear that we're not going to get there. I think I, as a superintendent, owe it to the middle school and high school learning community being its students first and foremost. Certainly the staff members and parents need to know that we just have to hunker down and know that we're going to be in that at-home learning design for at least the rest of this semester. And again, people might be asking, Ryan, why did you not submit a middle school and high school waiver? It's not available. It's not available to Snowline. It's not available to any school district in the state of California. So again, we just feel, and as a recommendation, that even tonight, by tomorrow morning, we send that message to our learning community, beginning with our staff, and then getting it out to our families and students so that they know this is where we're headed, and can really stay even extra focused for the rest of the first semester. And then the starting of the cohorts with acute needs. That's really emphasized. The kids who have the greatest needs, who really need to reconnect and do it for the guidance. And then that guidance, there it is. As long as you have stable groups that are limited by the size of 16, that's 16 adults, a total of 16 adults and kids, right? You can have a mix there, 3 adults and 13 kids in the maximum. But that we have all those safety precautions in place, and that no interactions occur, no mingling occur, that we continue to move forward with cohorts as we're ready, because that's what again, I know I'm beating that horse, but we're following the guidance, following the science, following what our local, state, and public health, state and even, I'll say local and state, I should end there, because those are the ones we're really following. States informed by the CDC at the federal level, but that they're informing us that we're able to do, and that it's, again, ensuring that safety is always there, that we get those cohorts going at all the levels based on those acute needs of kids who need to have those connections because of the challenges that are being faced at the at-home learning level. And in fact, and then finally, maybe it's a given, but I wanted to just really emphasize that we react accordingly to change. And I guess that's attached to that first piece, that we're going to go, we're not going to be the fastest, we're going to be the smartest, but also have to remain humble. I've got to be humble and make a change. You see some changes up there that we're making because, we need to make a change, but that's in the best interest of the Snowline School District. So President Behringer, I know there's a lot of talking by me. I hope that was helpful. The last slide, of course, is questions. I turn it back over to you. I appreciate you bearing with us collectively, everyone here. Hopefully it was assistive in what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Are there questions of the board?
I'd like to get a clarification. A lot of people, they send emails, they write letters, they had board member comments about whether we should open or should we not open. But can I assume that once we get the go ahead from state and local authorities, we're going to proceed with opening the school, or we're going to take a vote each and every time that the waiver is approved or not approved?
Yeah, I so appreciate that, Member Colomb. I would say that the latter, in my opinion. I mean, if you give us that direction, then we can follow the process. Hopefully, we've articulated the process. I'll get closer to the microphone. Hopefully, we've articulated the process to follow on a regular basis. Because as you well know, during the holidays and so on, I mean, there are a lot of time that passes. What we've tried to do is share with all of you the processes we are following and that we would, without fail, follow those guidelines and bring any changes like we even did today to all of you, changing that would veer from what the expectation would be from all of you that, hey, administration said they're going to do this, and in this case, open up based on approval from the elementary school waiver for one, and then monitor the data on the other ones. I mean, that would be an example of that. I mean, I appreciate you bringing up. That's an important piece for sure.
Other questions?
I think my main question, I believe with great news on the waiver. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people very excited about that one in Piney Hills Elementary. One of my concerns and something that I extracted from the survey is that I noticed A group and B group going in 2 days for about 3.5 hours, it looks like, Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. And each group then doing at home for the rest of the week. So essentially, A group and B group will accumulate approximately 10 instructional hours per week. This then leaves the students or the families that have chosen to remain in a remote school location limited to 5 instructional hours per week. In light of this, it seems like we are attempting to not provide the same service to those that are remote as of those that have decided to be in class. And that was specifically what I was concerned with, that we would ensure that those that chose in class would receive a higher priority of education than those that are remote. Any comment to the discrepancy of instructional hours per week for the two groups of students?
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking that, Member Hernandez. And this is, our I don't want to say first effort. We've made all kinds of efforts, right? In the spirit, I'm speaking to an engineer here, right? And the scientific method, and we have errors and failures and continue to work. That's our best laid plan right now. And I'll tell you, we'll get some more details from Dennis because he's been doing great work with our, in conjunction with our bargaining units, that he'll provide some additional details. But in the biggest picture, to answer your question, yeah, this is, one of those designs. And there was a question too about why does my teacher have to be changed? It doesn't have to be. We would try to keep all of that as pure as possible, but there will be instances where not all kids will be able to be in the same class because of all the changes. That being said, and to answer your question directly, what we're endeavoring to do is to find that best balance. And that was an example that we put out there, Member Hernandez, and we'll find that balance through that, through the good work with our stakeholders there. It was, I'm smiling a little bit under my mask here because, writing surveys is really hard. I say that, we really had a challenge working with our stakeholders too to find out, let's find one model that we can put out there, knowing that we're going to be working further details. Because you're right. I mean, there are some discrepancies there, and we want to level that out as best we can, but also do what we can logistically through the process that Dennis talks about. And Dennis, is that a segue for you to answer some, or provide more details to Member Hernandez, because there are a lot of details, given that there's good work that you're doing that's in process that, of course, we don't want to do anything that we can't talk about, but I know you have some other details you can share.
Member Hernandez, can you state the question one more time? I want to make sure I didn't understand it. The discrepancy between the hybrid number of hours and the remote school number of hours?
Yes, that's correct. It looks like the hybrid is going to receive 3.5 hours per day times 2, with the balance of the week 1 hour per day. And whereas the remote school is 1 hour per day, 5 days a week.
Okay. I think what you're quoting about the hybrid piece is correct. The remote school should not see a difference to what is happening now. They would remain 100% remote with a teacher 100% dedicated to a class of remote students.
But they will receive half the instructional time as the in-person student.
Why would that happen? The remote students would not be receiving any less time than they are now.
Well, and this could be simply by the question presented, but in the survey, it shows 1 hour per day for the remote student in the afternoon times 5.
Okay. No, that makes sense. What that on the survey, what that table was showing was that remote group is the group that is coming in person later in the week. The remote school student was not reflected on there. The student that chooses to be 100% remote is going to stay in the same type of schedule that they currently have.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that was very not clear.
It's adding an additional school option, not dividing the two options.
Okay. So we are ensuring equity between those that choose remote versus those that choose hybrid.
Yes, they will look different, but they will be equitable, those two choices.
Thank you for that clarification. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate the question.
Yeah, thank you, Member Hernandez, for the clarification too. Yeah, Dennis is exactly right. Yeah, it's status quo for that group there. So my apologies for misunderstanding your question too.
Member Nelson, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just thank them all for all the hard work they put in on this.
Thank you. Member Funk, any questions?
Yeah, I have two. One, I just need clarity. If even the school that was approved today, they wouldn't go in person until January 7th.
That's our recommendation. Yeah.
That's what you recommend. Okay. That I can get around. To be honest, if you would have said you were going to open school after Thanksgiving, I don't think I'd have been in favor of that. But the fact that we're going to put time into this and go slow and methodically eases me a little bit. So that being said, are there what are the possibilities that some of those other elementary schools can still make the January 7th date?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to have to, I'll be honest, we're going to have to regroup from this information tonight and really think about it. But having worked with those elementary schools, they're preparing already. And so you bring up, I think, a great question, if you don't mind me answering with maybe some scenarios. Next week, all of a sudden there's a drastic decline. Now, I'm not predicting that will occur. I think we see the trend lines, right? And we can probably make our best guess that probably won't occur, but I guess we never know, right? If that drastically occurs, my recommendation to the team is to find out from those elementary school leaders and their stakeholders is, hey, let's keep getting ready. Can you continue to get ready so that when the time comes, we can go as rapidly as possible. But again, I want to reiterate, and you said it well, I think you alluded to it, being safe, right? So I'm sorry I don't have that exact answer now, other than to say that they've been planning to this point, and I wouldn't see why we wouldn't continue to plan and be at the ready as best as we possibly can, all the while knowing that we don't know when that might come.
Is there an equal chance that Kenny Hills can go back on this?
Well, remember, Colomb just asked about, what about if they go back on the list? Once that's open, once they have opened up, right? Okay. Those conditions, they're able to remain open, as long as the school site is being successful. And that's not just Pinyon Hills, but any school in San Bernardino County, with their safety measures.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the important thing you said was react accordingly to change. Because, it's 2020. The word prediction and guess and whatever, man. The second, this is my biggest concern, is fluidity. students are going to go back to school and then not like it and then drop out, or vice versa. They've had enough of it at home. And so let's say a child in February decides they don't like what they're doing and want to flip to the other option. Can they? And man, it's going to affect so many people. I mean, you've got a teacher who's teaching a cohort, and now there's a +1. You can't get that student caught up, or the vice versa. You've got a student who is way ahead and now gets taken to a cohort that's behind. I know that's a complex answer, but what is the feeling on that fluidity issue? I mean, are we going to allow students to go? I mean, is the question even clear? The idea that
I mean, it's such a great question, Member Funk, because you're right. Hey, I like this first week. All of a sudden, I'm going to go back to remote school, or vice versa, right? And when we're in the normal setting, we allow for a lot of fluidity. But I will maybe use an example that, maybe the ultimate question right now is we're working on that, and we don't really know quite yet, right? There's still work to be done in that. But I'll use the example when we kind of some work that was to be done too when we opened up at-home learning, and that was with Snowline Academy. And really what we came to was we need to have some level of consistency. You might remember is stick and stay for that semester, right? Now, what I can say is that's worked out, I think, fairly well. But also I think we have to be considerate of certain circumstances. And again, hopefully I was really clear up front, Member Funk. Right now, we don't have that answer, but it's something that we've got to get to, and that we're working amongst all the things that, that we've been focused on, safety and so forth. We're going to have to get to that answer that's going to be appropriate for the stakeholders and ultimately the best interest of the kids. Because you said, well, that's not easy, is it? It's not easy at all. And I wouldn't purport to say that I have that answer. It's really got to be us as an entire school community to be able to make that assessment to support the kids. Great question.
Well, and I'd hope that would always be in mind was, okay, we're ready to open, and what are all of the cause and effects with that? And I think another concern with that, man has alluded to it, is the change in educator. I mean, these kids are just at a place now where they've got their teacher, they've got their set, they're ready to go. And for them to have a new teacher would be concerning. So, and I heard Mr. Zimmerman say you're going to do the best you can and consider that. But just as a parent who now sees my son engaging with his educators, I'd sure hope that you keep that intact. And I say that knowing it's 2020 and you'll do the best you can. You can't predict anything. So.
Yeah, very well taken. Thank you, Member Funk, for that reminder. It's an important one for sure. We got to do everything we can, like you said. Thank you for those great reminders.
Any other comments, Member Funk?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. I had a question concerning the way to get the waiver approved is to have 14 cases per 1,000 or less. Does that need to be maintained for a period of 2 weeks before the approval occurs, or the day they reach that level, it's approved?
Yeah, that's such and again, these are all powerful questions, and I thank you for that. And what I'm looking down here is I can even, pull right from the letter here, but those are weekly rates, by the way. Even though they're daily case rates, it's a weekly average, right? So it wouldn't be day by day. Make sure if I miscommunicated that or gave the illusion that it would be day by day, they'd be looking every single day. It's the week by week communication of the week-long daily average. And that will then be, once it's triggered, as it says right here, once it gets below, once it falls below 14 per 100,000, we will automatically submit your waiver request for reconsideration. And that's on the new daily case rate week by week, not 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, but week by week. So it's looked at in the context of each week, which if people are wondering, well, what day is that? It's, unless it changes, and we'll need to do some homework, unless it changes, it should be on Tuesday. And that's, and I need to be careful saying that because that's when the data go public to us. What I need to find out is, does San Bernardino Department of Public Health get those data? Well, I'm sure they get them before us, but do they get it and make the ruling on Monday. That might be the guess I might have, but we'll find out for sure what day that is. Right now, it's on Tuesdays.
And I understood your response to Member Colom's question about as each waiver is approved, you will pull the trigger and start proceedings with reopening that.
Yeah, that would be our. Yeah, thanks, President Barringer. That would be our recommendation, and again, that's with what's been said by I think all the board members over the course of the meeting for the most part is with careful consideration. I mean, based on the conditions. And I say that because there are a lot of forces that we've learned about. I feel a little touch of deja vu because here we are on a Tuesday night. And I remember in July, in the middle of July, we gave a proposal to all of you on a Tuesday night. And then the governor said he was going to speak on Friday. Well, here we are now, and we're talking about the elementary school waivers, and the governor is going to be speaking on Friday night. I hope that, doesn't, somehow change, courses like it did last time. But if it does, we have to make that change. And I'll go back to that statement that I'm trying to hold myself and ourselves accountable to, and that's we got to be humble and make changes as are necessary in the best interest of safety in this entire learning community. So yes, we would say yes, we're going to get ready to go, but again, notification needs to go. I mean, I just think of what all needs to occur is even if a site's ready, parents need notification. Families need to be put at the ready. And to know on Tuesday and start on Wednesday, that wouldn't be realistic, right? We would need to work with that learning community, I think, in my opinion, and find out what are realistic timelines to be able to get people to make accommodations so that, ultimately we're servants of this community. We need to make sure that we're serving them well.
And so the soonest date that anybody's returning to in-person instruction in a cohort fashion with the hybrid model is January 7th.
Yeah, good call. You said two things there. So when you said cohort and hybrid, so I want to separate those. So we just use them separately. So from a hybrid standpoint, we're recommending moving that from December to January 7th. Now we have cohorts already working. They work under those guidelines that I had put up there. They're not subject to that 14 number, that threshold there, right? None of the cohorts are in the state of California because they've got very strict safety guidelines, much more so, right, than the waivers where there's some maybe a greater chance for groups to pass one another. That doesn't occur with cohorts. And so with that, those are already in operation, one. And then two, we would continue to, ask that we, move those as quickly as possible. Maybe it's before January 7th, but we have to be as safe as necessary. And I know up until this point, we have plans for our special education, our next group of special education kids for the 30th. And if that can still work, well, we're certainly looking at that day by day. And so that's our recommendation on cohorts. So that's why I separate those two. President Barringer, my apologies if I mixed those up there.
And so each of the school sites will have everything in order by January 7th then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying without talking to them right now. And I say that because I want to certainly be sensitive. We meet with them on a regular basis. They're on track for that, for sure. I want to make sure they can still do it, but that would be the plan. So it's a great question by you. And so, yes, that would be the answer right now. But again, the data are really going to drive this for sure. Good question, though. Thank you, all of you.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, thank you. I guess a few questions. Speaking with various sites over this last week, it was conveyed that they are being told that individual temperatures will not be checked upon entry to the campus. One of our slides is clearly saying that we are going to follow the public health guidance. So, contact. What are we doing to make sure that we can implement that? And I preface this kind of with the idea that I have a lot of people that are disappointed that all 6 schools did not get the waiver. But perhaps we can use this opportunity to use Pinyon Hills as a case study on how to get this right. What can we do to implement? What can we do to make sure that our staff is safe, that everybody's being screened upon entry, that we can monitor and watch everybody, students and staff alike, that they are following all safety protocols, masks and whatnot. So in terms of protocols, what do you have any comment to those questions?
Yes, for sure. Thanks for bringing that up, Member Hernandez. And first and foremost, you talk about screening at the door. I think the really even more important issue is active screening at all times. I mean, just period, active screening, right? That our concern is, while I'll get back to the notion of walking in through the door, that if we're not actively screening for symptoms at all times, right? Not just the beginning of the day, the end of the day, then we're not really doing our part to ensure the safety of all of ourselves, right? As adults, but most importantly, the kids, right? So that active screening, we want to be really clear on that we're really trying to make sure that we define active screening as all the time, because sometimes I think it's looked upon as just at the entries of the door, right? And that's, active screening. So with that being said, also want to capitalize on what you said about Penny Hills Elementary School. We're actually even doing what you described already, not only visiting other schools that are in operation, but our own with cohorts, right? We're learning from those cohorts right now. We're learning what is working and what we need to change. And I give the staff members great credit because there's been a lot of success so far. So your point's a great one. We would take any opportunity to learn. And so thank you for bringing up that. And then back to the notion of walking through the door. Now, I will share this with you. Unless something changes right now, that's a recommendation. It's not a requirement, right? And so we've really been weighing, the two situations, to be quite frank. That the idea of the benefits of coming through the door versus, to be quite frank, there's some challenges too. Preventing congregation, which can be problematic, right? Also, when we talk about some of the challenges that really concern us, and I'll even own this myself, is the stigmatizing, right? Is how do we build a system so that does not occur when we get, whether it be true or false readings of temperatures. Being on the outside and where we've kind of learned from some of the other schools who've gone before us, there's some real challenges there relative to the specifics. And so I give you that kind of big picture that we're really looking at both sides and having some significant challenges, hearing both. It's very clearly CDPH, it's a recommendation. But I want to make sure Dennis and Robert, you guys open up your microphones because you guys have done a lot of work in this regard. And I know you can provide some extra details that'd be helpful to Member Hernandez and all the board members.
Sure. Dr. Holman did a great job explaining it. We are trying to weigh the best and safest way to make sure only healthy people coming onto campus and those that are not coming onto campus, while looking at all of the different factors. Temperature is one factor. Taking somebody's temperature does not indicate they are not a carrier of COVID, and somebody with a temperature doesn't indicate they necessarily are. But we're still looking at all of those pieces. As I've observed at 3 schools now in 2 different districts, what I'm seeing at the schools where they're temping students one by one as they come to the gate is parents and students congregating in long lines outside of the campus on their way in. There's just not a way to keep people physically separated far enough apart or keep people from coming close together as they're doing that. So that's, something we're looking at and being concerned with. We also need to make sure, like Dr. Holman said, that that's not a one and done. We really need parents to be and staff to be the initial screeners of health before coming to school and work. And then we need to, all of the adults in a department in a school district, on a campus in a school district, to then be actively monitoring and screening one another for health things. And, if I'm in my office and my staff hears me coughing or something, I guarantee you very quickly they're picking up the phone. They're not walking in here. They're picking up the phone and telling me go home. Because we are being as careful as we possibly can be. It's very interesting. CDC, the national group, said do not take temperatures, and they had their reasons why, because they said it was kind of a false indicator, and it took your eyes off everything else that needed to be on at that point in time of the day, and congregating was an issue, and that still was on their website as late as last week on that regard. So it was interesting how that differed from other local ones. Also, we are looking at the plus or minus accuracies of all the different thermometers as well, which when we're only talking 100.4 and you have a plus or minus 1 degree accuracy on the thermometers, it leaves a lot of room for false errors. And there's shaming involved, but there's also missing the temperature and letting somebody in the door that we now said was safe to come in, and now they're not. So we're trying to weigh it all, what's best for all.
Yeah, thanks so much. And then Robert, I know would you want to maybe add something? And I'd even maybe encourage you to talk about even the testing we've done. I mean, this is not something that we've done anything other than been really, I think, diligent in looking at all the pros and cons that Dennis explained very well there. Robert?
Yeah, sorry guys, just running some technical issues in the background today.
Sorry.
Not wanting to work for us today, being a little stubborn. But so with temperature checks, we have demoed quite a few products actually. We've had them on site. We had them set up in the gymnasium. We've at Serrano High School. We've demoed what they look like, how they work. We've used them outside as well. And so we have looked extensively into different manufacturers and brands, applications. And, we've even looked at what are, some of the districts that are using temperature screening as they enter. We've looked at those as well. Ultimately, it comes down to kind of what Dennis was talking about, really the accuracy. It's really hit or miss, to be honest, guys, unless we can really put these thermometers or, they're IR, they read IR, and unless they're in some type of controlled environment, they're pretty inaccurate. We were out at a district, and it was 8:00 in the morning. They were conducting these screenings outside, right? So as the students were entering, and the camera was picking up the car heat in the background, and it was picking up the concrete heat on the floor. So I mean, they're just not designed to do what we're asking them to do. So, and there were a lot of, to be honest, there were a lot of issues with, the way I've seen them being used with, just the way kids are congregating and have to, walk through and funnel through and kind of herd them through a certain area to make this work. But we have looked extensively into models. I mean, we're talking about IR cameras that are $30,000-$40,000 a piece, so we're not looking at anything that is, some type of fly-by-night product. We've done our research and have really looked at really expensive IR cameras.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I just really appreciate, Member Hernandez, your question, because again, I just want to reinforce as I wrap up my comments about that active screening has to occur all the time. And so, stay tuned, of course, and is maybe the ultimate answer, but active screening is just going to be so important for us to think of it as a full day's responsibility for sure. So really a great question. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. You did mention the idea or learning from the cohorts right now. And I understand that while it wasn't our staff, there was a positive case on the Vista Verde campus. And can you go into detail about that event and what their plan is?
Yeah, so remember, Nancy, I want to be really careful when we use that word. When I use the word detail, I want to be really careful that there is a requirement for us to obviously protect confidentiality too. And I know you know that. I'm really saying that for the benefit of everybody out there when we specifically talk about, the who's and what's, because Dennis Zimmerman, I think, was the first one to talk about the shaming, right? And that's just really important for all of us in our district to ensure that doesn't happen, not just with COVID-19, it certainly seems to be escalated that way, but with anything, right, that we make sure that we protect that. But what the details that I think are relevant here are that one of the cohorts that you're alluding to is a San Bernardino County superintendent of schools, right? It's a county-run special education program on the site of Vista Verde Elementary School that serves our kids. I want to be really careful there, right? It serves our kids, and it's wonderful, and we're thankful for that. And while there was a case there, I think it was handled very, very well by San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, personnel, the administrators. We were able, and actually, I want to give credit to the people I work with, these administrators. Over the weekend, Saturdays, Sundays, I think Maria Hughes and Debbie Barber, I contacted them over Sunday night, and their job never ends. And they're just great to know that the steps were taken in terms of contact tracing and then specifically ensuring that all of the staff members, not just within the county program, but even outside, the contact tracing takes into account all people who are within the CDC's guidelines of being close contact. That always occurs. And Dennis, if you don't mind, I keep calling on you, but you're living this, maybe even right now, maybe you're looking down because you're living it, at the moment, because it is always something that we're diligent about, right? Is making sure we're following the right stages and processes. Can you add anything there that would be helpful to Member Hernandez?
I can, but not in such a way that's not going to violate confidences that we're not allowed to speak, because even in generalities, it's a small group of people that are there, and it's real easy then for people to make conclusions, and then we're back to the COVID sharing and COVID shaming. So, sorry.
Yeah, Dennis, safe to say that all the proper, steps were taken, right, to ensure safety of all involved, right?
Yes, definitely all the steps were taken to ensure safety, and decisions were made based on some other extenuating staffing personnel challenges of the county in regards to this situation.
Yeah,
and perhaps I was confusing one of my with my question, but it was particular to protocols and procedures, and that everything was executed in a manner that was consistent with isolating, identifying, tracing, and notifying any others that may have been in contact.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. And yeah, my answer to that is yes. And again, Dennis, I think maybe I just kind of prompted that question, but make sure just that, if you want to add anything to that. But I think the answer is definitely a yes there. Dennis?
Yes, definitely handled according to process and procedures. And I'd say even the most recent situation, even well beyond that.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. And thanks, Member Hernandez, for the clarification.
Sure. Going back to the survey that we were speaking of, the parent survey, you were pleased with the approximately 70% response rate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of a survey that we do need to know 100% what these families are expecting to do. Leaving 30% out there ambiguous as to their plans is a significant number. What are we doing to reach out to those families to find out their plans?
Yeah, thanks, Member Hernandez. I was remiss in saying that. Yeah, I was excited about that number, right? 100 was the number we wanted, but that's exactly what they're doing. That's actually happening at all the sites, and they've been engaged in that. Many thanks, to Alan Miller, Dave Winward, and heading up that cause of identifying through the survey who's saying yes, who's saying no, who's still outstanding, and they're doing the follow-up as we speak. And so, and been doing it for a number of days. So, your point's well taken. I guess I was just kind of thinking back to my survey days, right, of what's a good number, and I appreciate that. I mean, we know we're never, well, I shouldn't say never going to get 100%, hopefully someday, but we're going to get 100% of responses by virtue of calling them, contacting them, and those great staff members doing that good work now.
Yeah, 70% rate in a normal survey, you would call that statistically significant. But in this case, 30% out of, I believe we said approximately 3,000 students would leave somewhere on the order of 900 to 1,000 students yet unaccounted for in terms of their plan, and a pretty high number to try to figure out how we move forward.
Yeah, so really it'll be down to zero, right? By that time, that's really the target. But yeah, you're exactly right that, the number looks large at first, but I mean, those staff members doing great work. They knew exactly what you talked about, right? We got to hear from every person, right? So great question for sure. And that's already in operation.
Okay. I guess my last question is in terms of the plan, as we have one school on waiver at this point, and that will launch turn of the year. What, if any, plan are in place to ensure that the staffing on site is able to handle the daily load and the weekly load to sanitize the classrooms, the common areas, and what of providing water opportunities for students on campus? I know water fountains are going to be essentially off limits. What are we doing about that?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to queue up my a couple of my colleagues. That'd be Dennis and Robert talk in just a second. Give a big picture here. And maybe I think it's a fair piece for me to say. Was it you, Member Hernandez, or was it Member Colon? My memory's not serving me well, but the notion of "We Are Snowline." I remember that hashtag. Was that you, Mark?
Yes, sir. We are Snowline.
Yeah, and I'm going to invoke that right now. That was a hashtag we used right for an entire year. We certainly appreciate that. Appreciate your thinking in that. And that really comes in my big picture answer here, and that is, while one school has the waiver approved, we still are Snowline. And the bottom line is we're employees of Snowline, and we, a little spoiler alert, but in my administrative comment, I'm going to talk about an article. It's not even fair. A small bit of an article that I wrote in the Mountaineer Progress about the greatest quality we have is working together in service of the entire district. And that's what's going to, be, whether it's just Pinion Hills, whether it's all 6 elementary schools, whether it's, then add the middle schools, whatever it is, right? It's got to be all of us working together to serve the entire school district. So with that, though, there are a lot of details that I left out that Dennis and Robert can add into there. Dennis, you want to start first with the staffing piece? And then I know Robert will be able to speak to hand washing stations, bottle filling stations, et cetera. Dennis?
Yeah, it seemed like big part of that question, Mr. Hernandez, you're asking is classified staff and the amazing skills and support that they provide for our kids and our staff in many different ways. But, we're going to need to be flexible and nimble. We're going to need to at times move support where it's most needed. And then also sometimes give some extra hours to go back and do the regular, things that are happening in other places. But we're prepared to do that. Our CSEA group, our CSEA president, labor rep are 100% supportive of working with us to do whatever needs to be done to do what's best for students.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dennis. I appreciate it. And Robert, you mind filling in relative to the hand washing stations, bottle filling, et cetera?
Yeah, no problem. So we have converted drinking fountains into bottle filling stations. Our maintenance department, we actually stole it from Lucerne Valley. So we converted our drinking fountains into bottle station filling, and we also purchased additional bottle filling stations as well. Each student will be provided a water bottle. Karen Stevens had the great foresight to get that done all the way back in March. So we have water bottles for all of our students, which they'll receive. They can write their names on them, and they will be used, to drink water throughout the day. Hand washing stations, they're already there at, if we're just talking Pinion Hills right now, particularly, they're already there because they have a cohort running, right? They already have a cohort up and running at that school site. So we have additional hand washing stations. And that daily sanitizing is already taking place, like I said, because we do have cohort and staff on site there. A lot of that staff is already on site at Pinion Hills, actually. But we have ways that we're going to be applying disinfectant. We're going to be using, Hudson sprayers, kind of in bulk application, right? We have, atomized sprayers and just a bunch of different types of application to kind of help speed the process along. Most of that disinfectant, right, is a spray and leave, right? We got to let it set up for 10 minutes and you walk away, right? So we've definitely looked at streamlining that disinfecting process and making sure that our custodial staff and other staff, teachers or whoever else may be helping in that process, has a quick, reliable and easy way to make that happen. So that stuff's already going on at specifically at Pinion Hills. So.
Great, thank you. Can you speak about supply chain? in terms of those materials and the availability?
Yeah, so we're looking in really good shape. So Waxy, has they definitely have some supply chain issues. We're pretty well stocked up on our disinfectant. I will tell you the Lysol, like the wipes, the Lysol wipes, those are really hard to come by right now. But we do have disinfectant on hand, whether it's a Waxy product. But that stuff is available. Spray bottles, microfiber cloths, applicators, all that stuff we have sitting in our warehouse, and we're really just holding on to it. To be quite honest, I know we've been hearing quite a bit from our school sites. We don't see it, we don't have it here on site, and it's like, well, we're going to get it to you when you need it. We're trying to really be cautious, really be careful of sending that product out when the time is right, and when we really need that product. We're trying to keep a tight inventory on what we have. Because you're right, it is hard to come by, but we're constantly buying product, even into the next school year, to be quite honest, because who knows what the 21-22 school year is even going to look like. So we're already gearing up for the 2021 or for the 21-22 school year now. So
Yeah, it'd be pretty tragic to be able to get this waiver, get school started, and then have to shut down because you can't clean.
absolutely.
Thank you. I think that's all my questions. I appreciate everybody's responses. Completely appreciate our classified staff for all the hard work I know they're doing now. So thank you very, very much to them. Thank you to the certificated staff end of business and keeping these kids engaged. So I think moving forward, we've got a lot of work to do, but we've got the right people here to do it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your questions, Member Hernandez. Is there any further discussion? There being none, you are off the hook.
Well, yeah, thanks, and President Barron. I would just assume that it sounds like there's consensus on those recommendations, right, at the end. Is that fair to assume that we're comfortable moving forward with those? It seemed like it in context of the conversation, but I just wanted to be certain.
Right. Is there a consensus then of the board to move forward with the recommendations of the administration?
I'm for it.
The recommendations for start date, or what are we speaking of?
Yeah, that was the last slide prior to the questions there. Remember, Naz, and that was a few things, right? It was the start date, as you just mentioned, relative to elementary school, right? Pausing on that and moving forward with Pinion Hills as is appropriate and watching the conditions. The third one was the message about middle school and high school, right, in the semester. And then the fourth one was continue with our cohorts based upon readiness and that very strict guidance that we need to follow. And the last one, Member Funk, and I think mentioned that well, that react accordingly to changes.
Yeah, I think that react accordingly is an important part of January 7th. It's going to come quicker than we think. A lot can happen between now and then. So without a commitment to, that's a hard date, but a good target, yeah, I'm for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And did we hear from Member Funk on that?
Yeah, I was the visual thumbs up guy, but I'm in favor. And again, I reflect what Marcus says. We're going to learn this as we go. And I think we got a great team that'll do it.
Okay, we're good on the consensus.
Yeah, thank you, President Barron, and all the rest of your colleagues. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the presentation. And that then takes us to board member comments. And I would just like to say that how much I appreciate community comments, and that to let folks know that we are listening, we do hear, and we are considering those comments as we deliberate and plan and make decisions. It's of the utmost importance that we're keeping all members, all stakeholders safe in this time, and we are very deliberate in those decisions. And I'd also like to thank the teachers and staff in providing the safe and predictable routine for our online learning. I think that a lot of kids are doing exceptionally well with this platform. So I greatly appreciate those efforts. And thank you for the endless number of hours that our administration and leadership team is putting into creating these plans to ensure safety of everybody. I really appreciate that. Just making sure that we're all on track for having safety protocols in line at all of our school sites when they're ready. Thank you for that. And Member Hernandez, your comments?
Thank you. Yes. Actually, first a question of Dr. Holman and of course Mr. Chacon. Last meeting we spoke of the Baldy Elementary School site and some an incident or material issues out there. Do we have an update on what's going on out there?
Yeah, we sure do. Thanks, Member Hernandez. And actually, Robert Chacon been doing outstanding work with, Rick Dawson and making progress. And we'll get an update on that progress. I want you to, full disclosure, it's not completed by any stretch, right? But we're going to give you an update on that. They're fully prepared. Robert?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Marcus. So we got a couple irons in the fire right now with that project. So I'm going to start off with James Fields. Did a great job kind of reaching out to OPSC and trying to find some grant money to kind of help us with this project. There might be some emergency funding that is available to us. We met with OPSC I think 2 weeks ago or so at this point, week and a half ago actually. And because we needed to know what their timeline was, what their requirements were, and how we can apply for those types of funds. So we got all that info, and the other piece that we were kind of held up on was did the demo of the project have to go through inspection with department with oh my gosh, why can't I think of the acronym right now? So many acronyms. DSA, there we go. Thanks, Dave. So we were waiting to hear back from DSA. I did hear back from DSA actually this morning. They finally got back to me and said we will not have to have approval for the demo, but we will have to have approval for the replacement. And so it's going to be a two-part project. We were a little concerned because OPSC did talk about having to have a structural report for the demo, and we had to get engineering and all this stuff for OPSC, and then DFS kind of nixed all of that for us. So it doesn't sound like we have to go that route for the demolition. So far we've only received one bid on the project. We had another contractor out there on Thursday doing a site walk. We're really trying to get a second bid for you guys, so you have something to compare it to. And also, I want you guys to know that we are working with Go Architects. We've requested a full set of plans from DFS and TSA, and we've requested a full set of plans from DSA to help just kind of dial in that scope of work with our contractors. So, the contractors, it's kind of an all-encompassing bid from them. That's kind of what we think we need, but I want to make sure that that is in fact what we need. So we are working with Go Architects on making sure that that scope of work is accurate. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm hoping to have another quote by, hopefully by the end of this week from that second contractor. And hopefully Go will get back to us this week as well as far as their recommendation for scope of work, and we can go from there. So I think we kind of have all our ducks in a row at this point, and we're getting close to pulling the trigger.
Oh, very nice. Thank you for that update. Appreciate it. I guess my other comment was able to drive through the Vista Verde Kindness Parade last week. So it was rather awesome and fun to be able to take my family through there. Of course, my daughter being alum of Vista Verde, and my little one, a future Viper there. So it was a nice day to be out, and everybody was rather enthusiastic and socially distanced. It was a great day. Really, really happy with that. And the final bit I have today is that I am pleased to announce that I have completed and I have graduated from the California School Board Association Masters of Governance Programming, and really look forward to maximizing the value and yours in my education for many years to come with this board.
Well, congratulations on that. Thank you for those comments. And Member Colon.
No comments other than just to mention a quote often attributed to Yogi Berra. The future ain't what it used to be.
That's a good one. Thank you. And Member Nilsson, your comments?
Yes, the first thing I'd like to do, I would like to publicly thank all the people that ran for the different board positions that were open. In my opinion, they're all winners. It takes a lot to put yourself out there to run for a school board. It shows your commitment to your community, and I think it's a great thing. And for those people that did it, thank you very much. It's kind of a rigorous thing. You don't know exactly where you're at, especially in this district, because there's not a lot of news media that covers it. And so congratulations to the people that were successful. And the other people that weren't successful, I just want to publicly thank you for your commitment of trying to do the right thing for your community. So I just wanted to get that out there. So I think they all did a pretty good job. And I have many members in the community talked to me in the state of Colorado and Nebraska. Some of the school districts up there have gone to a 4-day work week. And the reason they did that was to save a few pennies. You know, we have a thing coming down, this COVID thing really threw a left-hand curve to everybody. And it's consuming everybody's 120% of their time. But we still have this COP issuance coming down the road. And I describe it as a freight train going down the train tracks. And if that isn't solved quickly, I think we're out of time now. I think we're out of time. I think some decisions are going to have to be made to offset that. We're looking at $4.5 million out of a budget of approximately $80 million. So a little over 5% of our entire budget. That has to be solved. Remember, 90% of our budget is salaries. And so we got to come up with the funding to pay that. And unfortunately, it's for the next 30 years. And so that occurred many, many years ago. Borrowed this money, but it's time to start paying it back. And if we don't come up with a plan, I think it's going to be a disaster for the classroom and students with the boundaries of Snowline. But anyway, in Colorado, they went to this 4-day work week. And so there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes. I appreciate the community members that have brought that suggestion to me. And I brought it to the district. I know they've done some preliminary research on it, and they've talked behind the scenes a little bit about it. And some of their comments is that, you know, there's a couple schools that tried it in California. They went back to a traditional track. Still has the authority from the state to try it, and they haven't pulled the trigger yet. And so it brings a comment that was said earlier that Snowline. In the past, Snowline has always been the innovator, educational leader in the high desert. We've been very successful at that. You know, I need to find out what the effect is upon students. I hear that it doesn't increase their performance, but it doesn't hurt it. If that's the case, and we could save a few pennies, that would be a great thing. I want to see Snowline being the educational leader and being the first one to try something very innovative, and that would be it. The next thing that they say is they said, well, you really don't save that much money. We used to be in the chicken business in Phelan, and we used to run trucks all over the country. And if I could have cut my trucking costs by 20%, that was some serious money. And if you're only transporting students 4 days a week instead of 5, there's going to be some cost savings there. It's not only going to be in the diesel, but it's going to be the wear and tear on your buses. It's going to be tires and all those things that are associated with it. The other thing, too, that I do know as being the former maintenance and operation facility director for Snowline is that if you set your energy management systems, when students aren't there, your facilities use a lot less energy. They use less lights, they use less heating. There's a lot of cost savings that go along with that. So how much would the cost savings be? I don't know. They tell me in Colorado that there was some. I've heard through the grapevine that they don't feel there'd be much. But I'm going to tell you, to come up with that $4.5 million this next year, you're going to be scratching for every penny that you can get to pull that off. And so if it's a little bit, it's better than nothing. The other thing that I want to mention to you from teachers just coming out of college, I have two of my youngest son, his wife, are teaching in the state of Washington. They were thinking very seriously about leaving the state of Washington and go to Colorado because they have the 4-day work week. I told them they were both crazy because they'd have to take about a $10,000 a year hit in salary to go to Colorado. And they said, yeah, but we like walking in the mountains. We enjoy hiking and camping and all those things. And with the 3-day weekend, we have the opportunity to do that. So that comes back to mine. You know, Snowline was founded on hiring the very best teachers, and I think we have the very best teachers in the whole. But if we have teachers just coming out of college and our salary is comparable, they look at a 4-day work week, you're going to get the very best coming to Snowline. I think that's an important feature. The other thing that I'd like to mention to you, and this one isn't probably too popular, when I used to be a classroom teacher in up at Serrano High School, I noticed that there was a lot more subs on Friday than there were any other day during the week. Not all occurs on Friday, but it happens. And so we pay these subs. Now, if you're going to a 4-day week, your sub costs are going to be less. So I don't know if they've factored in all those hidden costs, but I'm just telling my board, my colleagues here, give it a serious look because those kind of cuts are away from the classroom and it won't require you to take to the from the classroom. And if you can save a few pennies doing it, the community wants to do it. If the students want to do it and the teachers want to do it, it might not be a bad option. And it's something that everybody needs to open their eyes, and they don't just need to dismiss it off the top because a couple of people looked up there and they said, oh, you know, they've had a little bit of benefit, but not much. We shouldn't be doing this. Because I found this out in all the years I've been on the school board. School districts do not like change. They want to keep it exactly the way it is and improve on it and make it better. They want to perfect it, but they don't like change. This is a change. This is a change. And so you're going to have to make some changes in Snowline to be able to come and make that COPS payment. I wish you well in the future. I'll be praying for all of you. I'll be praying for the new board members. Wish you well in this endeavor. But it's my opinion, if we don't come up with a great plan before this next summer, Snowline's going to have some real issues. And it's going to be very unfortunate. And the ones that'll pay the price is the kids in the classroom. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Madam President. Is there anybody else I can comment about it? I know Kenny was from Colorado. He probably saw some of that stuff. And he noticed how it worked.
Indeed. Member Funk, did you have any comments?
I do. I have a question first. This is it for me, right? For Dave and I.
We would like
to have you have another meeting, and then you got to show up. I told the superintendent, as far as me, the other ones we want to spend a lot of time. But if he took 15 minutes, that was probably 14 minutes too long. But anyway, they have a meeting in December, and I think there's one at the end of this month.
All right. Well, you saved yourself a lot of time. For Dave's comments in Colorado, it was hit and miss. In the mountain communities, it was quite successful, and people really enjoyed it. In the metropolitans, Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Fort Collins, it didn't go over well. They started the pilot program in the community I lived next to 6 years ago. And the first year, it just terrible reviews. People didn't like it. But then the following year, people loved it even more. And then the following year, people loved it even more. That I would bet now, if you were to ask those people if they'd go back to a 5-day work week, they would revolt and they wouldn't. So, and Dave's exactly right. There's a lot of cost that may or may not have been calculated in there. You know, your wear and tear in your buildings, your deferred maintenance, all of that probably isn't calculated in whether or not they saved the money. And then the test scores, Dave, they stayed within the margin. They didn't decrease or increase. So the idea that's what I've heard. Mr. Zimmerman may have better numbers on that, but what I understood is the students continued to learn at pace. So that was encouraging. And I think too, a 4-day school week should be considered. It's for consideration for sure. The other thing that I have on comments is I've been reading a lot about mental health, and now that we've been into this pandemic for 9 months, some statistics are coming out about where we're at, and they're not good. And I'm not going to spend time on giving you those numbers, other than one number in particular that stood out to me is that 50% of diagnosed mental health issues were diagnosed in the school. So when the child is absent from the in-school experience, that diagnosis becomes harder to find. So when we talk about in-learning versus hybrid learning versus online learning, we got to consider the idea that teachers were our front line and counselors were our front line to seeing where our students were mentally. And so it breaks my heart that we still have the wedge there that keeps us from being able to look at the students in the eye and offer them the hug or the kind word that they need. So again, I ask you to reach out to your neighbor and just be there. It's interesting, the two things they said were best for all of us during COVID. And it's simple. You could think about all the things they do. All of these doctors came together, and the two things they said that can beat depression during COVID is, one, get help. If you're feeling that you need to be heard or you need someone to talk to, get help. And I want to thank Nancy and all those with Care Solace and this board for approving the idea that help is available. So get help. Second, and they couldn't stress this enough, go outside. Get outside. Take a walk. Walk the dog. Walk the cat if you can. Pine needles, raking. It didn't really matter what the activity was, but all of these scientists, all of these psychiatrists got together and said spending time outside relieves so many of the tensions that go along with the anxiety that we have going on in our world right now. So we spend a lot of time talking about being inside, in our schools, in our homes. Please find a way to get outside, help your neighbor, get the help. And to the teachers and to the students, we talk about it, help each other out, honest communication with each other. If you know somebody's needing the help them get that help. I plead you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And that takes us then to administrative comments. Has Mr. Miller rejoined us? Okay, Mr. Miller, your comments, please.
Thank you, everybody. First of all, I apologize for joining you late tonight. Ryan knew it was for a good reason. I was attending some virtual training with Riverside County Office of Education. It's called CASC Coaching, and that's Clear Administrative Services Credential. I'm going to be Lori Delgado's support over the next couple of years as she clears her credential, and she's a real pleasure to work with. As a colleague, she's great, so it'll be easy work for me for sure. But that's what I was doing this evening. Earlier today, as well as yesterday and tomorrow, I participated in NISL, the National Institute of School Leadership, which I've told you about before. This 3 days is focused on coaching for high quality teaching. So it's been very interesting, some great learning and some great networking with some of our other high desert administrators across the valley. So I've been doing that. So a lot of learning on my part. Just Member Funk, just wanted to really just state how pleased I am that you made those comments about mental health and everything, and just giving some really good suggestions on how to enhance mental health. I just had a conversation with my daughter last night, just about making a commitment for myself and her to do more things outside, and I just think it's so important. And we talked about excessive screen time and whatnot. And so we both, I mean, she received it very well, but that's one thing I'm going to do on my home front just to work on the mental health side of the house. So thank you very much for those words of encouragement there. Want to say that I'm going to be sending an email to all of our board members, and I'll copy our administrative staff as well. I promised to share some academic data and some attendance data. So I've got something coming your way right after this meeting. Star reading data is what we're going to start off with. I'm including a comprehensive report for you to peruse at your leisure, as well as an instruction sheet of what some of the acronyms stand for and everything. And I think it will help you navigate that data a little more. I would ask you to concentrate on grade equivalency on that report. And I think you'll be really happy. I think it'll be self-explanatory as you get into the data. But please, I invite some conversations and some follow-up questions before the next board meeting, or even at the next board meeting during comments. At that time, I'm going to be bringing you a math report as well to focus on. And I just think it really tells a story about where kids are right now. I don't want to say that it's bad data by any stretch, but I do definitely have some concerns about academic loss during this COVID-19 pandemic, with teachers working as hard as they can, administrators, parents at home, as well as students. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at some data and just seeing how this season is impacting the academic learning of our students. Okay, with that being said, in that email, I'm also going to include a YouTube link to Matt Fell and his Serrano band. They did a wonderful rendition of America the Beautiful in tribute of the Wrightwood Veterans Memorial Ceremony last week. It was great. I posted it on a couple of Wrightwood Facebook pages, but I'm going to send it to you so you can click right into that link. It was really nice. They wanted to do that since they couldn't physically be at the ceremony, due to COVID protocols. But they made the best out of a tough situation and really created a wonderful keepsake for the veterans in the community. And getting on to my last comment here, just to support the county of San Bernardino in requesting people to go get tested for COVID-19. I just want to echo those sentiments. I pulled up something here from Hopkins Medicine, John Hopkins Medicine here, just to implore people that aren't experiencing COVID-19 symptoms to go get tested. I'm going to just read a quick passage here. It just says, people who don't have COVID-19 symptoms, many health experts believe that more people, including those who do not have symptoms of the virus, need to be tested to help prevent the virus's spread. Since availability of testing supplies varies across the country, different federal and state and local agencies may recommend different guidelines. But with that being said, while testing is ample in our community, it's free over at Rite Aid. Please take advantage of it. I took a test last week, got my negative results in last night. It will really help, first of all, to stop the spread, or to at least prevent the spread of the virus. And it will give us a more viable sample size within our community. I just jotted down some numbers here. Just for example, the town of Wrightwood, 5,000 people. A valid sample size is 1,623 people going to get tested. If we look at the city of Victorville, 2,355 people going to get tested within a testing period is a valid sample size. So I encourage people to do that. It's in no way stacking the deck, but it really is creating that viable sample size that will help our county, first of all, to look at more accurate data overall, and for us to make better decisions as we move forward in efforts to safely reopen schools and ultimately reopen the economy. So please take advantage of that, and that's my soapbox for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And that takes us to Mr. Zimmerman. Your comments, please.
Sure, just real briefly. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Member Cologne, for your Yogi Berra comment. I'm a big Yogi Berra fan, and I would love to get back to the days of deja vu all over again. Just to quote Yogi again. And then the other quote tonight for me is the one that's only maybe 45 minutes old, but react accordingly to change. Thank you, Mr. Funk, for that great bit of wisdom for all of us. And then my only other comment is just I am very thankful for the staff and community that we're working with and that are coming together to do the very best for our students, our kids in Snowline. It is a combination of, mental, emotional, and academic health that we're aiming towards, as well as their physical health. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chacon?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, President Behringer. Just want to thank the guys in the background right now. We're working on our YouTube stream. We were up over 100 people. Then we lost our feed. So I want to apologize to those people that were on and then got kicked off. And but luckily, we got a lot of those guys back onto the feed. So just a big thanks to Rick and James for making it happen tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Stapp?
Yes, thank you, President Behringer. Just wanting to let you know, especially Member Funk, in the spirit of Care Solace, our administrators were trained at our Leadership Council meeting, so they are aware also of the support that is available to their students as administrators and their staff and family. So that was a great thing as well. Also, Dave, I want to understand now, is this your last meeting? Are you not going to be at our December meeting? Uh-oh.
I got to click my button, Nancy. I'm not technologically advanced yet. No, I'm going to be at the December 15th.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because
I keep messing Dr. Holman around a little bit about my time requirements.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing. I have to make Dr. Holman think a little bit. But anyway, no, I'll be at that's the next meeting. Is the December 15th meeting?
Yes. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
The one other thing that I want to say is I appreciate all the board members that have been on the board with me over all these years, and I appreciate the current board, and I certainly appreciate the district administrators and all the teachers and all the employees of this school district. They're great, and so I wanted to say that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Dave. I just wanted to make sure you'd be there.
I'll be there. I'll be there. I think. I'll make Dr. Holman worry.
Okay. The other thing I would like to concur with Assistant Superintendent Mr. Miller on the video that Mr. Fell put out for Veterans Day. It was great. It was great. I mean, I was just so excited to see the kids and just them performing together, even though they were apart. And just thank you, Mr. Fell, and your students. Also, World Kindness Day was a great day for us here as well in the district. Not the same as last year, but it certainly was just a plus. And I thank Jerry Schlosser and oh my goodness, Tracy Wilson and all those who worked so hard. But those two girls just really go above and beyond. And our buses too, our transportation team, their buses looked great as well. And that would be all the comments I have tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Staff. And that takes us to Dr. Holman.
Well, thank you, President Behringer. And first of all, to Nancy, thanks for, as you all so often do, is do my work. And so thanks for confirming with Dave Nielsen and Candy Funk. Want to make certain they're going to be here on the 15th so we can very appropriately and very, very much in a wonderful way recognize both of them for their outstanding contributions to our board. And Member Nielsen, I want to capitalize on what you said specific to the board election results. They're still unofficial. We'll look to see if they'll become official tomorrow. And you had alluded to, I think it very well, Member Nielsen, if I may just add, and that is, I so admire anyone who says, I want to be a public servant. And so to all 6 of the candidates, because it still isn't official yet, I just want to thank them oh so very much and encourage them, no matter what the outcome, to continue to be involved with all of us, because it's those individuals who want to serve we need to really leverage to make the Snowline learning community even better than it already is. Area 2 and Area 5, again, elections are not official. We'll let everyone know once they do become official. So thank you for that, Member Nielsen. But I want to capitalize on what you said, Nancy, about World Kindness Day. You know, we're a kindness certified district, one of very few, and we are because of all of the staff members who I think in a collective fashion have embraced the power of kindness. And Friday the 13th was World Kindness Day, and I'm proud to report that kindness went out over the powers of Friday the 13th or whatever those may be, right? But they went out because of the collective commitment. But I just want to bring special attention to the 2 leaders. And you said it, Nancy. That's Jerry Schlosser and Tracy Wilson. They had the vision way back to leverage this effort, and they've just done wonderfully well. And it's so needed for the reasons that Member Funk talked about. And World Kindness Day is not one day. It really, truly is every day. And we do it very, very well, in my opinion, compared to all others. And so I'm so thankful for that. And speaking of being thankful, in Alan Miller's department, there's an article that goes out in Mountaineer Progress every month. I had the good fortune of being part of that years ago when I was in his role. This month, and for November, it's about what folks are thankful for here in the Snowline School District. So I just urge everyone to, if you have that opportunity to see the Mountaineer Progress, to check that out, because I've seen the draft and there's some powerful comments in there. But I'd also want to say that I think a video is going to be coming out, according to Charlotte Deckenoff, based upon all of the other comments. And it's just really a great reminder, that notion of why are we thankful for Snowline. And as I read all the responses, I just kept nodding my head and smiling, because they were oh so very well said. And so I'm just as thankful to be in this district for all the reasons I remember you just mentioned, Member Nielsen. But we'll save more of those reasons for December 15th, right, Member Nielsen, so we can recognize you and Kenny at that point. I also want to talk about public comments. President Behringer, I think you said that very well. So thankful for everyone who was willing to share their voice, and whether it be students or staff members or our parents, guardians, and anyone else in our community. We're so very thankful for that. And as I took some notes, I want to just bring attention to a couple of things. And that would be sports. There was a reference to sports, and I don't think I directly addressed the question. I can do it now very quickly. And that question's often said, why are sports out there able to condition? Why are they conditioning when we can't even open up schools? That is based upon the California Department of Public Health guidance. So we're following the guidance in that regard. So I want to make sure I clarify that piece, that is allowable by virtue of the guidance that comes down from our state and local officials. And also the notion of choice, I think, is also very important. You board members, thank you for really supporting us on so many fronts. But I want to say specifically on the idea of, in this case, of allowing choice. We know that that this pandemic has many impacts and implications and consequences that are so, I guess, so hard to prepare for. But allowing for choice through our students and for our students, I should say, and through our parents and guardians with the programs that we have, I think is really helpful. So thank you for supporting us in that regard. And then there were a number of comments that were about not opening or opening, and we heard the waiver. And I want to be very clear here. I'm just so thankful again, Alan, you mentioned San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. We literally found out tonight during the meeting about the waiver approval, and that's a huge thanks to Barb Alejandre. I think I mentioned it before, but I want to give her a real special shout out. I think I consider her a friend of Snowline. And not many people would do that and reach out and say, hey, Ryan, just want to let you know the letter's going to be coming to you and here are the results. And so we're able to share that in this avenue. I don't usually look down and use my phone, but I did tonight because of that fact, because we want to make sure we got the information out in an official fashion. The letter came to, and so as rapidly as possible. So we're being as transparent as we possibly can with our learning community. I'll make certain to the board members that I follow up with the letter tonight. To ensure the details about what transpired, because we've got about 100 people watching and listening. I want to make certain that everyone hears this right away, so we'll follow up. But again, a huge thanks to Barb Alejandre for her support of us. And now, when you talk about the testing, I will say, I think I've had like 6 tests now over in different spots. The Hesperia and the San Bernardino County locations up here in the high desert. There's another one in Victorville. They're free. They're very professional, very appropriate. I've done this all without symptoms, right? I've just done it to ensure that I could say to our community how that process is. The Rite Aid, I think I just completed my 3rd one today, again with no symptoms, just to make sure that I can share with everyone. Alan's reasons that he shared, I think, are very appropriate, but also the notion of modeling, right? Modeling the idea that, I can speak by experience as to it really was done very, very well, and it adds in many fashions, just like Alan said. So thank you for bringing that up, Alan. And then as I just go through my last couple comments, I've just got some other good news. I want to say thank you to Baldy Mesa Elementary School PTA and all our PTAs who are operating in an online, remote, distance learning at-home environment. I was invited to the 5th District of PTA Superintendent's Roundtable, and Baldy Mesa was a focus. They were the initial focus because of the great work of PTA. They had received a $5,000 grant at the start of the school year and chose to spend that on supplies and readiness for the online learning environment. And that was just really powerful to see Baldy Mesa recognized that way. And it's Maggie Scarpolino, who really was the contact and I think one of the leaders of that effort. So credit to her and Shad Grijalva, Steve Conrad, and all the staff members there. But I think the best measure was Jan Gonzalez, one of my real favorite colleague. She's the superintendent out of Victor Allen. She was at that meeting. She texted me because this was a remote meeting, of course. And she just said, Ryan, that just brought tears to my eyes because it was a video compilation. And I agreed with her. And it was just so very powerful to see how a community can come together. We talk about that often, right? We are Snowline. How do we come together and support our kids? And that was one way that PTA did. And so just a plug here. If you're not part of a PTA and you're interested, please get involved, because all of our PTA members are, in my opinion, overworked for sure, but we appreciate that overworking, and we certainly, many hands make the light work, and credit to Baldy Mesa for making that, that hard work really much lighter than it could have been because of that support of our students. I also want to share with you, gosh, our nutrition service department led by Tony Chafee and all of the team members. They've been recognized for many great efforts. 100,000 pounds of free 20-pound food boxes. That is a lot of boxes, right? You do the math. That's 5,000 20-pound boxes delivered to our community members for free. Think about that. That's 20 pounds of food for free. They were recognized by Gold Star for their outstanding work, but it continues here. And I'm just here to share with everyone, they're going to be able to, on Friday, share 21 meals for the following week. Get a load of that. 21 meals so that our kids can be fed over the course of Thanksgiving. So that was just recently recorded. Robert, anything that I missed on that you want to share on that? But I know that's kind of hot off the press. Anything else you want to share on that?
Yeah, that's really hot off the press. I was looking for her flyer right now. She just sent out the flyer a little while ago. But just a huge shout out to Tony and that crew. really supporting our families. Not only, are they providing food on the weekends, right? Saturdays and Sundays, those kids picking up meals on Fridays are getting a Saturday, Sunday meal, but I mean, kind of going way above and beyond, making sure that our kids are, provided good, nutritious meals all through the Thanksgiving break. So it's going to be a first come, first serve type basis. So you want to make sure that you get there and you get in line for your, week's worth of school meals.
Yeah, so well said. Again, that's 21 meals per student. So bring your trucks, bring plenty of room because it's going to be a lot of food, given away. Just how powerful is that to support our community? And then I think I got to the end of my list. Other than you see this bell here, please close your, cover your ears real quickly. It's fairly loud there, right? Snowline was one of a number of districts that received this golden bell. It's and I want to read it so I do it justice. It comes from the California School Boards Association. It really is a high honor. We've received a golden bell for our EO program a number of years ago. This was received and presented to Snowline as well as other high desert districts that are part of the Mountain Desert Career Pathways JPA, Joint Powers Authority. And I had the good fortune of working with Matt on this effort here. Matt Wells, a former student of ours, former employee, just a wonderful individual who now heads up the Mountain Desert Career Pathways. And it was awarded for an outstanding program in the career technical education category in the efforts we've engaged in specific to the Mountain Desert Economic Partnership. Now, a lot of titles there. Ultimately, it's back to how do we prepare kids for success? And we think about what's been happening. This effort has led to our partnerships with, General Atomics and other industry leaders out here so that we can get kids to not only learn up here, but also work up here, play up here, and ultimately stay up here in the high desert. And this is evidence that our district, plus the other districts in the Mountain Desert Career Pathways, the very first consortium to ever win a Golden Bell, so we can say Snowline's first. We happen to get the award first. We'll share the award with the others, but I don't know when I'm going to share it. I'll share it, I guess, soon enough. But right now we've got it here. And again, just really proud of everyone who makes this award happen for our kids. You board members should be very proud because you're all very strong supporters of our CTE efforts at all of our high schools, not just Toronto High School, but all of our high schools. So with that, I'm done with the celebrations other than to say I just thank all of our staff members and you board members. This is hard work. And the times right now are maybe sometimes referenced as dark, but I think the light that really shines through is Snowline. It's the Snowline learning community. And despite these challenges, thanks for being a light for the kids that are really needing it right now. Thank you, President Brandon.
Thank you. And there being no further business before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Member Nielsen. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Colomb. And a roll call vote. Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Colomb?
Aye.
Member Nielsen?
Aye.
Member Funk?
Aye.
And Christina Berenger votes aye. We are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
That's a
Stay
great
safe.
point. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Forgot to say